The gas station attendant had been dead for approximately 6 minutes when Tyler Reeves pulled his pickup truck into the parking lot, and the only reason he knew something was wrong was because the man behind the counter was smiling at him through the window with eyes that didn't blink and a head tilted at an angle that living necks don't bend. It was 2:47 a.m. on a stretch of Interstate 10 between El Paso and nowhere, the kind of empty West Texas highway where you could drive for 100 miles without seeing another car, and where the stars stretched from horizon to horizon like a ceiling made of broken glass. Tyler had been driving for 9 hours straight, hauling a trailer full of equipment from a construction site in Phoenix back to his company's warehouse in San Antonio, and his gas gauge had been hovering near empty for the last 30 miles, the warning light blinking its angry orange reminder that even 18-wheelers couldn't run on fumes and prayers forever. The gas station had appeared like a mirage, a single pool of fluorescent light in an ocean of darkness, a Sunico sign rotating slowly against the black sky, and a small convenience store with windows that glowed the color of old teeth. Tyler pulled up to pump number 3, killed his engine, and sat for a moment in the sudden silence, rubbing his eyes, trying to shake the fog of exhaustion that had been creeping into his brain for the last 2 hours. That was when he looked through the store window and saw the attendant. The man was standing behind the counter, perfectly still, facing the parking lot. His uniform was the standard blue polo that gas station employees wore everywhere, and his hands were resting on the counter in front of him, palms down, fingers spread. His head was tilted approximately 15 degrees to the left, not dramatically, not obviously, but enough that Tyler's tired brain registered something off about the posture without immediately understanding what. And he was smiling. Not a friendly smile, not a customer service smile, but a fixed, rigid expression that looked more like someone had physically arranged his facial muscles into that position than like he had chosen to smile on his own. Tyler stared for a long moment. The attendant didn't move, didn't wave, didn't shift his weight or adjust his posture, or do any of the small, unconscious movements that living people make without thinking. He just stood there, smiling, tilted, watching the parking lot with eyes that caught the fluorescent light and reflected it back like glass. Something cold moved through Tyler's stomach. He told himself he was being ridiculous. The guy was probably just tired. It was nearly 3 a.m., working the graveyard shift at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. Anyone would look a little dead on their feet. But Tyler didn't get out of his truck. Instead, he pulled out his phone and pretended to check his messages while watching the store through his peripheral vision. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes, 3. The attendant did not move, did not blink, did not breathe as far as Tyler could tell from this distance, and the smile never wavered, that terrible fixed grin that belonged on a mannequin or a corpse, but not on a living human being standing behind a cash register in the middle of the night. Tyler made a decision. He was going to leave. His gas tank was nearly empty, but there had to be another station somewhere ahead, 10 miles or 20 or 30, it didn't matter. He would rather run out of fuel on the side of the road than walk into that store and find out why the attendant wasn't moving. He reached for his keys, and that was when the lights inside the store went out. Not flickering, not dimming, just off, instantly, as if someone had thrown a switch. The attendant vanished into the darkness, and the store windows became black mirrors reflecting Tyler's headlights back at him. Then the lights came back on. The attendant was gone. The space behind the counter was empty, the cash register sitting alone, the door to the back room standing open like a mouth. And written on the inside of the window, in what looked like red marker or lipstick or something Tyler didn't want to think about too carefully, were 3 words: "Don't leave yet." Tyler's hand was shaking so badly he could barely turn the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and he threw the truck into reverse, backing away from the pump so fast that his trailer jackknifed slightly before he corrected. He didn't care about the gas. He didn't care about the warning light. He only cared about putting distance between himself and that store, that window, those 3 words that someone had written specifically for him to see. He was 50 feet from the exit when the figure stepped into his headlights. A man. The attendant, Tyler realized with a lurch of horror, standing in the middle of the driveway with his arms hanging loose at his sides and that same terrible smile still frozen on his face. But now Tyler could see details he had missed from inside the truck. The attendant's blue polo was dark across the chest, soaked with something wet that glistened in the headlights. His neck was bruised, purple and black, and his head was tilted because something had been done to his spine, something that cracked the vertebrae and left his skull sitting at that unnatural angle. This man was dead. He had been dead when Tyler pulled into the lot. Someone had propped him up behind the counter like a puppet, arranged his hands, fixed his smile, and waited. For what? For Tyler to go inside? To investigate? To walk into whatever trap had been set in that back room? The dead man's mouth was moving now, not speaking, the jaw just opening and closing slowly, mechanically, as if someone behind him was working it like a ventriloquist's dummy. And from somewhere, from the store, from the shadows beside the building, from everywhere and nowhere, Tyler heard a voice, a whisper that carried across the parking lot despite the rumble of his engine. "Come inside, Tyler. We've been waiting for you." His name. They knew his name. How did they know his name? His truck was a company vehicle. The logo was painted on the doors, but his personal name wasn't displayed anywhere visible. Unless they had been watching him longer than tonight, unless they had followed him from Phoenix or tracked him through his route, or… Tyler didn't let himself finish the thought. He floored the accelerator. His truck lurched forward, and the dead attendant made no move to get out of the way, just stood there smiling as the front bumper struck him and sent him sprawling across the asphalt like a rag doll. Tyler felt the impact in his steering wheel, felt the sickening crunch of a body going under his tires, and he didn't stop. He blew through the exit doing 60 miles an hour, his trailer fishtailing wildly behind him, and he didn't slow down until the gas station was a speck of light in his rearview mirror, shrinking, gone. His hands were shaking, his whole body was shaking. He fumbled for his phone, nearly dropped it, managed to dial 911 with fingers that felt like they belonged to someone else. The dispatcher answered on the third ring. 911, what is your emergency? There's been a murder, a gas station off I-10, maybe 20 miles east of the Highway 54 junction. The attendant is dead. Someone killed him and propped him up behind the counter. And there's someone else there, someone who knew my name, who tried to get me to go inside. Sir, I need you to slow down. Can you give me your exact location? Tyler checked his GPS, rattled off the coordinates, and kept driving. The dispatcher asked him questions, description of the station, description of the body, description of anything else he had seen, and Tyler answered as best he could, but his mind kept circling back to one detail that he couldn't explain. Don't leave yet. Someone had written those words on the window while the lights were out, which meant someone had been inside the store the whole time, watching him through the darkness, waiting for him to make a decision, waiting to see if he would walk into the trap or run. He had run, but they had known his name. The police found the gas station 40 minutes later. The attendant's body was exactly where Tyler had described, crumpled in the parking lot with tire marks across his torso. But the forensic evidence told a different story than the one Tyler had witnessed. The man had been dead for approximately 2 hours before Tyler arrived. His throat had been cut, his spine had been broken, and his body had been positioned behind the counter with wire and fishing line to keep it upright. The back room of the store contained a small office, a storage area, and a door that led to a basement. The basement door was standing open when police arrived. Inside, they found a mattress, a camera on a tripod, and 17 photographs pinned to the wall. Photographs of men, all of them alone, all of them taken at night at gas stations along Interstate 10 between El Paso and San Antonio. Tyler Reeves was in one of those photographs. It had been taken 3 nights earlier at a truck stop in Las Cruces, New Mexico, while he was fueling up during a previous haul. He was standing beside his truck, checking his phone, completely unaware that someone was watching him from the shadows with a camera and a plan. There were other items in that basement too, items that the detective who called Tyler the following morning described only as evidence of previous victims before going silent for a long moment and then asking if Tyler wanted to know more or if he would prefer not to know. Tyler said he didn't want to know. He already knew enough. He knew that someone had been hunting truck drivers along this stretch of West Texas Highway, selecting them, photographing them, learning their routes and schedules, and then setting traps at isolated gas stations in the dead of night. He knew the attendant had probably been killed specifically to create the scene that would lure Tyler inside, a gruesome piece of bait designed to trigger curiosity instead of fear. And he knew that if he had gotten out of his truck, if he had walked into that store to investigate the smiling man behind the counter, he would have joined the others in that basement, the ones whose photographs were on the wall, the ones whose fates the detective wouldn't describe. They didn't catch the killer that night. The basement contained DNA evidence and fingerprints, but they didn't match anyone in the system. The camera held footage of the attendant's murder, but the killer had worn a mask, a plain white mask with no features, no expression, just smooth plastic that reflected the fluorescent lights like a second face. The investigation expanded to include unsolved disappearances along the I-10 corridor going back 7 years. 11 men, all truck drivers, all traveling alone, all last seen at gas stations between El Paso and San Antonio. None of them had ever been found. Tyler Reeves drove a different route after that night. He switched to daytime hauls, shorter distances, highways with more traffic and more witnesses. He installed cameras in his cab, a GPS tracker that his wife could monitor from home, and a handgun that he kept in a lockbox beside his seat. But he still dreamed about that gas station, still saw that attendant standing behind the counter with his broken neck and his frozen smile, still heard that whisper carrying across the parking lot, "Come inside, Tyler. We've been waiting for you." And still woke in the darkness of his bedroom with his heart pounding and his sheets soaked with sweat. 6 months later, a trucker named Marcus Webb disappeared from a rest stop near Fort Stockton, Texas, approximately 90 miles from the gas station where Tyler had almost died. His truck was found 3 days later, abandoned, the driver's door standing open and the engine still running. On the dashboard, written in the same red substance that Tyler remembered from that night, were 3 familiar words: "He came inside." The case remains open. The killer has never been identified, and somewhere along that empty stretch of West Texas highway, in a gas station that may or may not still be operating, someone is still watching the parking lot, still waiting for a truck to pull in with a tired driver behind the wheel, still smiling in the darkness with a patience that has no end. Tyler thinks about that sometimes. Thinks about all the drivers who pass through that territory every night, who pull into isolated stations to fuel up and stretch their legs, who never think twice about the attendant behind the counter, or the shadows beside the building, or the basement door that might be standing open just out of sight. He thinks about calling them, warning them, telling them to stay in their trucks and drive on empty if they have to. But he knows they wouldn't believe him. He knows they would laugh and shake their heads and tell him he watches too many horror movies. He knows because that's exactly what he would have done before he saw the smiling man with the broken neck, before he heard his own name whispered across a parking lot by something that hunts in the spaces between cities, before he learned that the most dangerous places in America aren't the dark alleys of big cities, but the bright fluorescent pools of light on empty highways where no one can hear you scream and no one will find you until it's far, far too late.